Hello and welcome, I'm Maria from Sew Through Time, and this time we're making an Italian Renaissance, specifically Venetian Gamurra, or Curdle. In the Renaissance era, even though we did already have global trade and Europe did already have fashion trends that would go throughout the entire European society, there was very much regional variation in how that fashion was. And specific to this region in Italy around Venice was that the waistlines of the kirtle, or Gamurra as it was called there, was much higher than in the rest of the Europe, where it usually sat about your natural waistline. Here it went to your underbust line. Now the basic shape of the Gamurra or kirtle doesn't really change a lot throughout the late 15th to early 16th century. The biggest difference is the shape of the sleeves. Today, the gown I'm going to be making is a tight sleeved one, so that puts it to about 1490s. As far as I know, there aren't really commercial patterns available for this era, and so what I did was I took the basic kirtle pattern that I've used before for my history bounding linen kirtle that I made last summer, and that is from the Tudor tailor. And I just basically took that pattern and reworked it. So here I have my basic kirtle pattern. And what I'm going to do is I measured on my body and found out that I can take 2.5 inches off the bottom. And then it's up about under bust. Because the way this kirtle works is it spreads out my bust so much that there's just no way I can take more than that. So I'm just marking that out here. And there we've turned it into an Italian Renaissance kirtle for the Venice area. I interline the bust with a layer of wool broadcloth and linen canvas. The bodice is lined with a mid-weight linen. I stack the small interlining pieces onto another layer of interlining that is made the same size as the bodice minus the seam allowance. Then I sew vertical lines throughout the interlining pieces. This not only keeps the layers sandwiched together, but it also creates extra stability and bust support.
Then the inner lining layers get sewn onto the front lining. And then the front lining to the front fashion fabric, so that the raw edges and the inner lining get sandwiched in between the layers. Then the bodice back piece is sewn together the same way. The lining and the fashion fabric are put together right sides facing each other, and then they're sewn from all edges except the bottom edge, so that then when you turn it around, all the raw edges are neatly folded in between.
Okay, so here I have the back piece, and now I'm gonna fit some 5mm plastic boning. I want it 1/2 inch shorter than this is with the seam allowance turned in. So I'm guessing about there. Should be right, and then I'll just cut another one like this for the back piece and then the front pieces, and then I'm going to sew this seam so that there's like a channel to insert the boning in, and then I'm going to file this boning down so that there's no sharp edges, and then I'm just going to turn the seam allowance and close both the bodice back and front. Okay, for the front, I don't actually need to make a separate channel because I can scoot it in this like channel that formed from attaching the inner lining to the lining.
The eyelets are worked with a simple whip stitch.
Okay, trying the bodice on. It's just pinned at the shoulders. But other than that, it fits. Pretty dang nicely.
Then I cut 3 60-inch panels for the skirts. I cut 12-inch slits for the sides since no seam aligns with them. Then I narrowly hem the slits. Then I hand hem the bottom edge. the upper edge is pinked. The upper pinked edge is turned over to the inside and 2 rows of gathering stitches are run through it for cartridge pleating. The pleating is gathered down to match the bodice pieces. The cartridge pleats are whipped to the bodice by making 2 whip stitches through each of the bumps with buttonhole twist thread. As for the sleeve, I'm working with my 1790s tight-fitting sleeve as my base, and then just sketching out the pattern for the sleeve from the reference picture onto that. I sewed the sleeve lining and the fashion fabric together. After sewing up the sleeve and enclosing all the raw edges, I pin on the design I want my Soutache braid to be in. As an afterthought, I really should have done this with the sleeve only being the fashion fabric and the lining being separate, so that I could have enclosed all the raw edges and all the bottom weirdness underneath that lining, but because I didn't think of this, I have that all done already, and then I have weird bumps on the lining side, but it doesn't really matter. Nobody sees it other than me when I put it on. I prick stitch the Soutache braid on. That basically means that I make a back stitch with only a very small stitch showing on the front side. Then velvet ribbon is attached to all the points on the sleeve. With these, the sleeve is both closed and attached to the gown, because otherwise this tight sleeve would not fit over the loose-fitting sleeve of the shift or gamissia that was worn under these gowns and would be puffed up through those holes. And lacing holes are made on the shoulder strap of the Gamurra. And lastly, I stitched on some brocade ribbon on the neckline of the Gamurra to add a little bit more interest onto the gown itself. And here it is, my finished Venice Renaissance Gamurra in a very non-Venetian environment. I hope you enjoyed this video and hit that like button, and subscribe if you haven't already so that you can join me again next week for the outer gown, or chioppa for this, and some footage of that gown in actual Venice. See you again next time. Bye!